Hi, Merry Christmas, and welcome to week 16 of Big Balls Fantasy Football. I am Jenilee and I have your picks. This is my little sidekick Zoe here, and I have your picks for week 16, which for a lot of you is going to be the finals in your playoffs. So that's right, it's the week of Christmas, it's championship week. Let's get you guys some wins out there. I know I am playing for one of my championships in one of my leagues. Greg already gave you his picks, and I am in the semifinals in another league and in a third place game in my third league. So here we go. Let's get right to it. I didn't have my Bears Santa hat, but I'm still going to bring you gifts for picks with my White Sox Santa hat. So here we go. We're doing things a little bit different. We're doing studs and duds in the playoffs instead of our regular picks. So we're comparing two different players and telling you who we would rather start out of those two players for the playoffs. So let's start it off with quarterback as the first position. And I have quarterback Matthew Stafford versus the 49ers or quarterback Carson Palmer versus the Packers. Now in this one, I know that both quarterbacks have been passing a lot. I know Palmer has been on fire this season, but I'm going to go with Stafford. I really like his matchup a little bit better. Stafford has been on fire as of late. Since week 12, he's had 12 touchdowns and only one interception. Since week 12, Carson Palmer has had 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So Stafford has been passing many, many more touchdowns than Palmer as of late. Now Palmer is going against the Packers, and the Packers have given up 18 passing touchdowns, and the 49ers have given up 19 passing touchdowns. So both defenses are playing a little bit similar in that arena. But Palmer also dislocated his finger in last week's matchup versus the Eagles. Now, it didn't seem to bother him, but, it's something that the longer it goes on, it, might be something that's lingering. It might bother him just a tad. And let's face it, the Packers and the Cardinals game just means much, much more. Right now, the Packers are in the wild card. Right now, the Cardinals have a bye. So they both want to keep their positions in the playoffs, which means that both teams need to do whatever they need to absolutely do to win the game. Whereas Stafford at this point, Detroit 49ers, both teams pretty much suck, but Stafford is playing to keep his job. He has to keep Detroit convinced that he should be the quarterback there. So with how he's been playing of late, I know I'm starting him in one league, and I think you definitely need to get him in that matchup. Let's move it on to running back. So this one, I have 2 running backs that have difficult matchups this week. I have running back Javarius Allen versus the Steelers, or running back James White versus the Jets. Now, neither of these players have been losing their mind all season. For most of you, you're probably like, who are these running backs? Because I didn't know when the season started who they were. But because of injuries, both these guys have been playing. Now, in this one, this might seem surprising, but I am going to go with Allen versus the Steelers. I know a lot of you out there are going to say, are you crazy? Because he's had a rough couple the last couple weeks have been rough for him. He's fumbled the last 2 weeks. But I just think this is a week that he's going to get back on track. I don't think he's going to fumble this week. Therefore, they're not going to pull him. And he's a guy that he's used in both the rushing attack for Baltimore and the passing attack. They actually passed him quite a bit. So in your PPR leagues, that's a good thing. Now, White, I know, has been balling out the last 3 weeks. Trust me, I'm in PPR leagues. I see his numbers, but he is used almost only in the passing game. They don't really use him a lot for rushing. And these are situations that are interesting. These are both division games. These are teams that absolutely hate each other. Now, I know the Ravens, they're not playing for much at this point, but they would love to just knock the Steelers off path for that wild card. And the Jets are absolutely trying to get back in the wild card race, which means the Jets defense needs to lock it down, and they need to play great against this Patriot offense. And then just a couple more things on the defenses these players are playing against. The Steelers give up the fewest points to running backs, and the Jets give up the 3rd fewest points to running backs. So like I said, both of these matchups are very tough for these players. I don't truly like either matchup. If you have someone else to go with, I'd absolutely go a different route. But if you have these two guys and you're wondering who's going to get you more points, I'm going to go out there and go with Allen this week. Now let's move it on to wide receivers. I have wide receiver Stephon Diggs versus the Giants, or wide receiver Jeremy Maclin versus the Browns. I know Diggs has come on and been quite amazing this season, but I am going to go with Jeremy Maclin of the Kansas City Chiefs. He is helping out that offense for sure. Again, let me start talking about these defenses they're going against. The Giants give up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers, and the Browns give up the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So both of these matchups are very, very good for either of these players. But Maclin, as of late, he has got the hot hand. He has 40 targets and 4 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks alone. So again, Kansas City, they're playing to get into that wild card spot, and they need Maclin to help them do that. Diggs has 2 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks, again, compared to Maclin's 4 touchdowns, but he had both of those touchdowns last week against the Bears. So the previous 3 weeks, he had 0. I know he had a few weeks in the middle of the season that he was super, super hot, but he's fallen off a little bit. And last week, Jermaine Kearse completely burned the Browns defense for 110 yards, and Baldwin had 2 touchdowns. So again, this Browns defense is not very good against wide receivers, and you got to get Maclin in your lineup and expect him to ball out for the Chiefs. Let's keep it on moving. We have tight ends. Tight end Zach Miller versus the Buccaneers, or tight end Julius Thomas versus the Saints. I am going to go with the Julius Thomas in this one. I love his matchup this week. In the last 5 weeks, Thomas has 292 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. Meanwhile, yes, Zach Miller has come on for the Bears. He is the starter since Martellus Bennett's on IR. And he's had 205 yards in the last 5 weeks, but he's only had 2 touchdowns. So Julius Thomas is getting in the end zone much, much more. Bortles is looking his way when it comes to passing those touchdowns. And the Saints is who he's going against. The Saints give up the most fantasy points to tight ends. Let's look at what they've been doing as of late. What they've been actually not doing, because what they've been giving up as of late is in week 15, Eric Ebron had 79 yards. In week 13, Greg Olsen had 129 yards. And in week 12, Griffin had 72 yards and a touchdown. So the Saints are struggling not only against elite tight ends, but they're struggling against pretty much any tight ends that they go up against. And Bortles and Thomas are really starting to build that chemistry. He was injured early on in the season. It took them a little bit of time to get going, but they are absolutely going. And Tampa Bay actually has not given up a touchdown to a tight end since week 8. So even though they're giving up some yards and some receptions, they are keeping those tight ends out of the end zone. So I definitely like Julius Thomas a little bit better in his matchup. And last but not least, we have to talk about defense, because some of you are going out there on the waiver wire. I know I do it, and I'm looking for a defense that can get me points that week in that matchup. So this week I'm comparing the Bengals defense versus the Broncos offense, or the Texans defense versus the Titans offense. Both of these matchups are very, very good for these defenses, and if they're out there, go ahead and go pick them up. But I like the Texans matchup a lot better versus those Titans. Let's just see what they did earlier in the year, because they're division rivals. They played each other. In week 8 versus the Titans, the Texans defense had 7 sacks, 1 interception, 2 fumble recoveries, and they held the Titans to only 6 points. If they can repeat that performance, that's about a 20-point week from your defense, and you need that in your championship. Also, we already know that Marcus Mariota is out for the rest of the season, these last 2 games, that is. So Zach Mettenberger is going to be starting in place of Mariota. He did not play phenomenal at all since he started for Mariota the weeks that Mariota was injured this season. And on the Broncos side, let's face it, we're not really sure if it's going to be Peyton Manning or Brock Osweiler this week. Manning has been practicing. They might want to throw him in there to give him a couple games before they're in the, they start playing for the playoffs. Or it could be Osweiler. But definitely, I know Manning wasn't having a great season at all. He was having a completely crappy season. But if he's in there, it is still very much an upgrade from Osweiler to this Broncos offense. And I know Osweiler's been struggling the last couple weeks too. But like I said, both of these defenses are very good. Both of these defenses have phenomenal matchups to get you defensive points. Let's just compare their season totals right now. In sacks, the Bengals have 38. The Texans have 36. In interceptions, the Bengals have 19. The Texans have 11. Fumble recoveries, they both have 6, and defensive touchdowns, they both have 1. So again, they're pretty evenly matched, both defenses, but the Titans offense, I believe, is going to struggle even more than the Broncos offense. So go ahead, start that Texan D and get those points from your defense. So there we go. Merry, Merry Christmas. Happy and safe holidays to all of you out there. I hope our picks help you out. This is the last week of our picks, but I think we're going to try to have a finale show from Tin Horn, which Greg might have to do by himself because I will probably be working. But anyways, happy holidays, happy New Year as well if I don't get to see you guys before then, and good luck in your finals.